Hey everyone, this is Whack Comics, and we're live here with writer and director Adam Lawson. Hey Adam,
Hello. Hey, how you doing,
and
man?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, I'm killing it. We are, creating comics in a crazy time of COVID, so it's an awesome thing.
Yes, it is, and
Awesome.
obviously we're here with Lee too.
Hello, it's good to meet you.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool because I've been following the Shattered Glass reviews for a while now, and I think you and I have had many exchanges. We've had many exchanges going back and forth about different
I know,
books,
yeah.
and
I was just telling Lee that.
yeah, it's been really cool because it's like I think you and I have a lot of similar taste, and so sometimes you can find a reviewer that doesn't, right? But it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
but you seem to kind of hit them right on the head for what I'm into. It's fun.
that's super awesome. I'm happy to hear that. I know you always like message and ask if I'd be interested in stuff or if you'd be interested for this reason or that reason. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I love that interaction.
Yeah, it's cool because it's like somebody like yourself who's probably reading more comics than most people, right? You've got
Yeah,
yeah, right. I try to read every night for like 20 or 30 minutes every night. But it's like you're like, oh, this guy's got the right taste on it. Like this thing that people are talking about, is it actually good? You're gonna know. So
I like to think that at least. Well, I appreciate you saying that.
yeah, for sure.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit backstory about yourself, or how you got into comics, or directing? Just
Sure. So
yeah.
sure, yeah. So for myself, I've been in film and television now for over 17 years, working in film and TV, maybe 20 years now, actually. And so I've done many things along the way. But what I am now is I'm a television showrunner, and in my case, I'm a showrunner who also writes his show and directs it, which is puts a ton of weight on your shoulders, but it's really exciting. And I've been show running and writing and directing a show called Escape the Night for 4 years. It's a YouTube originals series, and that's
I've
been
seen
my
that.
yeah. Good,
Yeah,
good.
that's awesome. I did have no
Uh,
idea that it was you that did it before we started this interview. I was like, I was watching that show like years ago. I haven't caught up with it in ages. I got to like do the thing now.
that's awesome. Yeah, so it was 4 awesome seasons, tons of great fan feedback, and and it was cool because on the original side, it's you have like a more like a TV budget, and so you versus like doing a YouTube video, if you will, and so it's great, and it's really exciting, and then it goes across other platforms, and it airs on television, and it's really fun, and it was a fantasy horror world, and it was a unique format that I crafted for that show, and they let me kind of run with it, because they didn't quite know how I was going to make it, so they said, "Good luck. Here's some money. Don't waste it." And so it was really a great journey. And I also done a lot of celebrity board gaming shows. I did Will Wheaton's Tabletop. I've done Spell Singers for Magic the Gathering, Forrest Gray for Dungeons and Dragons, and so I've kind of been somebody who's put some geek content into television, if you will. Um, and that was something that that's where it began for me in TV and film, and it's kind of cool because now there's interactive TV with Netflix, and that's my new venture, is writing something there in that space with them. But it's which is fun, right? It's they have, I don't know if you've ever seen Bear Grylls You vs. Wild,
Oh yeah.
but where you can kind of choose your own adventure through the TV show.
That must be a
So
lot of fun writing something like that as well.
yeah, it's crazy to write because it's like you're writing a video game, right? Because you have to have possibilities, and you have to build like a grid system where it's like, if you go to the left in this scene, then it leads you this direction, and if you go to the right, because it's got to all circle back. And so it's like this. It's really difficult to get notes from the network back because it's like it takes them a month to like, okay, wait, what do you mean? So if we go here, what happens if they did this choice plus this one plus this one plus this one? It's like it's
I can only imagine that, like the strings going everywhere from the wall to the wall, like trying to match everything up, going crazy like Charlie does in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. That's right. You hit it on the head. And so that's been really fun to do that. And it's once again, it's also in, sort of a supernatural world is where my work always tends to lead me. But for comics, I think, my first moment of comics where I was like, this is it, was when I was about 13 years old and I saw Jim Lee's X-Men. And and I'd come to get the player's handbook for D&D, but there was it was the first time like, comic book characters aren't just like dumpy guys in underwear, they're like cool, they're like muscly, and Cyclops had sunglasses, and there's this really cool character Bishop I always liked, who was from the future, and it was kind of brooding, and it was just like Jim Lee's art sort of transformed them for me. And certainly my art tastes have expanded since then, but that was like the original impetus. And then, and that's why I went down the Marvel DC route and didn't quite even think there was anything hardly outside of it, really, until I was doing Stakes on a Plane, and Samuel Jackson came to set, and he was reading a graphic novel called 100 Bullets. And I remember he sat down and was reading that while he was waiting to shoot. And I said, if that's cool enough for Sam, it's got to be cool enough for me.
I was going to ask you about him later, so that's really cool. You already brought him up.
Yeah, it's really cool. And his daughter Zoe Jackson is a story producer in unscripted TV, and she worked with me on Escape Tonight. So it's funny how it's all in the family. But I remember thinking, like, gosh, if it's cool enough for him, like, that's got to work for me. And so I read 100 Bullets by Brian Azzarello, and Russo was doing the art, and I just was so blown away. Like, oh wait, there's a whole other universe of comic books, right, that are outside of superheroes. Not that superheroes aren't great, but there was this whole other world, and that's what got me on this whole other pathway of then wanting to do comics. And I'd been sitting around for the last couple of, I shouldn't say last couple, it's probably the last 5 or 6 years. I'd been working with artists and just doing it all on my own dime and my own time behind the scenes while directing television. And then COVID hit, and I said, wait, I'm going to have the time to really own this. And that's when I launched The Eighth, which you have been so amazing to do reviews on.
Yeah, I've loved The Eighth. And ever since you sent it to me before it was out, I read it. I was like, oh man, I've never backed anything before. So it was up for crowdfunding ever. I've never done that. And I was like, oh, should I do it? This would be the first one I ever like put money into. And then it's like, you have to wait. I'm like, oh, I don't want to wait. And then I'm so glad I did it now, because it's been so good. We're halfway through now, right? Is that 8 total issues?
Yeah. There's 8 total issues. We're 4 in. And we deliver it monthly, and then early next year, you're going to get the hardcover in the slipcase.
I can't wait for that hardcover. Just even thinking about it makes me so excited.
Right. That's the fun thing about crowdfunding a comic can do. You get an indie, right? Because that book's going to be hardcover. It's going to be embossed. It's going to have spot UV. It's going to have a slipcase. It's going to come with a print. And it's like, because you're not dealing with a retailer in the middle, you can offer things at a price that you could never get retail. And so it's fun to make a book that actually you want to collect, right? I think I found that myself, like that floppies, I actually end up tend to giving them away. And like when I move, I end up like just getting rid of them,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like especially any hardbound book, like Lock and Key is one of my favorites, and they did this master edition, these beautiful hardcover books, and I'm like, yeah, because that's the one you want to hold on to, right? That's the one
it's so collectible. It's so nice,
right? And so that's been really cool about that is as with The Eighth, and here is now with the Kill Journal, to make hopefully a collector's piece, is my hope. And I love that you have God Country up, Whack.
I love
because
God
because that's one of my all-time favorites. Such a good story, wasn't it?
Yeah, my first read by Kate as well, and it got me hooked straight away. But like you were saying with hardcovers and stuff, I got to agree, because like I've got my shelves they're completely full of hardcovers, and these days I'm buying more hardcovers than single issues, like personally, just because like down in Australia here, it's a lot more expensive to buy single issues every
Oh,
week.
interesting.
You know, like, so it's a lot cheaper to get a hardcover and, sit and wait. We have to wait a bit longer, but it works out better in the end. And like you say, I like the look of all the collected editions on the shelf and stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's where it is. And I think I've got a lot of pals in Australia who are in this space. And I think that you're not the first to say that. And I think that, like, so the same thing happened to me with, like, Wonder Woman, Dead Earth, right? Daniel Warren Johnson, my favorite. I'm just gonna get the hardcover. I don't even want to see the floppies. I'm just holding off for the hardcover, right?
Yeah.
So that's me and my background that led me here, and it's just been a personal passion that, this crazy time that we're living in now. It gave me the window to really dedicate myself to getting the books out and getting them promoted. And I have no regrets. It's been the best.
That's so cool that Samuel L. Jackson had a part in that for you, like getting into comics. Who would have ever thought?
No, I mean, it was nuts. I was just looking at that. I was like, huh.
Yeah.
that's gotta work. So
when you first decided to start writing, what exactly made you decide to write the Eighth? Like, had that story already been kicking around in your head, or?
Yeah. So the Eighth started, several years ago, and what I was thinking about was, I usually kind of think of two things. What's the emotional heart of the story, and then what's the supernatural heart of the story. And I loved the idea of the heart of the story is a boy who's suffering from the effects of bullying, right? Which resulted in his brother's suicide. And, it's interesting, my own life, a teenage friend of mine when I was in high school, she committed suicide, and bullying was a big factor in that.
Oh, wow.
And so, it was something that I lived with quite a bit, and to those who I was close to. And so I think that was the beating heart of the Eighth, right? And then I wanted to find a supernatural setting for it. And ancient Sumeria, I've researched a ton and thought about it a lot, because it kind of opens up a lot of doors, right? Because when you go backwards enough in time, you start to go forward into the future in some ways, right? It allows for science fiction through it being ancient.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it. I love that.
Right. And then I thought, one thing that is interesting about, comic book characters, or what they generate their power from, it's usually some gift or experiment. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if our actual our superhero's power came from his ability to do mathematics, right? In the same way that Albert Einstein wrote an equation equals MC squared, and then it turned into a bomb that leveled whole cities, right? More powerful than any superhero is that equation, or almost any superhero, right? But is that equation. And it's like, what if his gift was not that he was a mutant or was blessed by anything? He was just that good at math that he could run the equations needed to power the suit. And that's what those were my initial thoughts with it. And then a storyboard artist I'd worked with, he and I have been talking comics a lot, as most storyboard artists really wish they were drawing comics, but you make so much more money in storyboards. Right. And he and I started talking about it, and then said, you know what, let's do this. And so I put together a contract. I've just been paying him out of my pocket for, a long time. And we did 5 issues, right? Before even telling anybody about it.
Oh, wow.
And then that's when we launched the campaign this year.
Okay.
So that was the ride for the Eighth. And then now there's a new one, right? There's the Kill Journal.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Eighth, I wanted to find, what's the emotional heart of the story. And in this case, it's trauma survivors, right? People who have survived overwhelming trauma and how they cope. And it sort of came with this thought of, like, what happens after the horror movie ends, right? Once, we'll get to the end of the horror movie, and there's couple survivors, and they're covered in mud and blood, and their friends are all dead, and their houses are burned down, and the police sirens are coming, and our police sirens are raging, and they're standing there soaking in what's all happened, and then we cut to the credits, right? And so I wanted the story that happens after those credits to those people.
Yeah, you sent me like the first, I want to say it was 10 pages.
It was this first 6, I think I gave
Okay, yeah, first 6 pages, and that really surprised me. Like right away, I was like, "Oh, we are really into it." And then it just cut to, I think it was a year later, right?
Yep.
And it was so interesting. Like right off the bat, it was just a story I don't think I've ever seen. It just was so different. I love that aspect of it. It was super cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that it's like, what happens in that story when we take a pack of victims and turn them into hunters, right?
Yeah.
Except they're always a lot weaker than the people they're hunting, right?
Yeah.
They're significantly weaker, and they're never gonna ever be stronger than the people they're hunting. So the risk is always super high. It's like me thinking I'm gonna get a fight with Mike Tyson. I'm always gonna get hurt in that fight, right? And I liked that idea that they were going up against something that they would always get hurt. It would never be that they got ahead. Because a revenant, which is what they're hunting in this tale, are vengeful spirits back from the dead. And kind of like some people even use the expression slashers for them, like with a Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. But revenants are a broader group. And, you can hit them with a truck. You can shoot them in the head. You can try and get into a fist fight with them. But they keep coming back because at the core, they're a spiritual enemy, right? And until the spiritual problem gets solved, physically, you can't win. So, so you have to determine what made this revenant. And that's the other part of our tale is that we have survivors who are sympathetic because they've had this trauma, though some of them have a lot of guilt with it. Because like in any horror movie, should you have really gone to that party? You brought your kids somewhere you shouldn't have. You wished something mean on someone who you were mad at in a moment, and that turned into one of these revenants showing up. But now you've got to figure out what created these revenants. And in some ways, they're somewhat sympathetic too, right? Lots of them were people maybe on the edge or good folks who just got pushed too hard, right?
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I'm excited to learn more about the Revenant. Now that you're like talking about it, I didn't really think that deeply into it because obviously it was just the first few pages, but that'll be really cool to see that.
Yeah, because that's what they're really fighting. So they've got to do all the work to figure out what created the Revenant. In the same way Jason Voorhees has to be drowned at Camp Crystal Lake, right? Because you got to go back to where it all happened. They have to do the same. So, but while they're trying to figure out their past and build a booby trap, so to speak, they're getting hunted by this thing, which is much stronger and tougher. And they're barely getting out alive every time they have an encounter. And I loved that feeling of where it's unevenly matched for the heroes.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wanted to ask you a little bit about going back to the 8th. Sure. How did you meet Joran, and what made you decide to pick him, or how did that come across for the artist? Joran Evers is the artist.
Yeah, so Joran, I saw his work on ArtStation, which is if anyone doesn't know, it's a place for concept artists and game artists, etc., to find work and to post. And I saw him there, and I really loved his art style. And so what I did then is I started to hire him to do storyboards. So hopefully I could then ask him to do a comic book when I didn't have much money. Right?
Yeah.
That was my that was like
an end game.
Yeah, had an end game. I thought, well, maybe if I pay him a bunch of money on these other things that are more well funded, when I say, hey, let's do this indie book together where I don't have just paying out of my pocket, let's see what we can do. So that was the initial that was how it all came about, really. And then he did boards on Escape the Night. He did stuff for Spell Slingers. And then it was about after we'd done a couple seasons, and he had done Spell Slingers. So he'd done 3 or 4 projects with me. Then I said, "Hey, what about this comic book?" And then that's how he came on board. And he at the beginning was sort of the one-man show, doing it all, lines and colors and lettering, and then I took over doing the lettering. And it just got to be too much. But it's and it's tough because also he has a day job, right? Because it was as lots of indie comic artists do, right? And so it takes a while for him to get a book done.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so it's like for him it's more like a 3-month window, whereas on the Kill Journal, Jason Krager, my artist, does a page a day because he doesn't do anything else, but he's an artist, and he's also super veteran. He did The Darkness and Evangeline back in the day, and has been doing comics for a long time, and can just has a speed about him. So that's kind of that's how Jordan came to be, and he's just the most lovely guy who I hope to do more stories with. Yeah,
so that was his first comic too. Then
that's right. That's right, and it's pretty amazing when you see his panels and his layouts. He and I talked about it a lot, about having like these really dynamic page layouts. That the page, the way that panel framing was designed, told the story, and all this pretty advanced storytelling. And I kind of took it for granted, right? How like he just jumped into it and did it, and they were amazing, and he like. And because now on the Kill Journal, there was a couple of artists before Jason, and there were some problems with scheduling and things, and one of them got sick and whatnot. And you start to realize, wow, I was taking a lot for granted with Jordan, like how good he was at just like, oh, I can imagine this really cool panel layout that's really amazing, and interesting, and you know what I mean? Like, and
that's his first comic reading it. Like I wouldn't have thought that was his first time.
No, he is amazing. I love his art. I mean, it is incredible.
Yeah.
And I really don't. Not that I don't think that about a lot of comics I read, but his specifically like really reached out to me. It is so good, and I don't know if you had input on the character design, especially for the 8th, like. His actual suit and the way it looks when it's like half on him and stuff like that, but that looks incredible.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because when he and I went the rounds quite a bit on design, and particularly in the coloring, because his coloring naturally is very simple. And I said, I think we want this to be grittier and grungier and have more weight to it, because his characters are cool because they're a little cartoonish, right? Just a hint.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I love that.
Which me too. I love it too, because it makes the world, which is very dark and threatening in the 8th, it takes a little bit of the edge off, right? It still lets it be fun.
Yeah, it feels very much like a comic book, but very adult at the same time.
It's bingo. So building out that color layout, how it has, it has that the feel of the color, how it has all that texture in it, and all these like painted brush strokes tucked into the backgrounds and things. That took us a while to get that solid. But we're really, I'm so happy with how it came to be. And then as far as like the character design, for the initial group, I would send him photos of actors or models to kind of say, hey, here's the direction of what I'm thinking they look like. And then we'd go from there. But then once we get later in the book, he would, and after we've done 2 or 3 issues, it's not like that anymore. Now he's like, oh, I got it. And he knows what we're doing now. And so it's great.
So is that usual for the writer to send the artist like stuff like that?
Well, here's what I would say about that. I would say yes. In the indie space, see, normally if you're working at Marvel, you have an editor right in the middle, who's really kind of controlling, who's like the hub, right? And they're saying to artists, Batman needs to look like this, or these characters need to look like this based on our universe, and they have references and samples, and etc. Right? But in the indie space, you oftentimes don't have you don't have a big machine like that. And so, in this case, I'm hiring also the writer, the artist. And so it's me doing all of that functionality. And so when you're creating something new, that's really usually how it's done. It's other art, photos, and examples that you present to them, right? And sometimes I have a new book coming out after Kill Journal where I've even done a little bit of like my bad drawing to kind of show what certain characters are to help get them. And it's not that you're trying to tell the artist what they can or can't do so much as they have some direction. Because I think what's really like difficult for an artist or even anyone is to say, yeah, you can make them look like whatever you want. And then it's just like, what does that mean? Like it becomes, instead of being freeing, it does the opposite to you. It becomes like you're panicked. I don't know what to do. And am I going to put all this effort in and then no one like it? Whereas if you can give people a good framework, then they can get creative inside of that frame, if you will. But that's and so then with the Kill Journal has been the same way. I actually started with an initial artist named Tauntaun Revolver who did all this concept work. And he and I worked out all the characters and the look and aesthetic, where we would spend like 2 weeks on one character, right? And then I gave all that to Jason Kreger, my artist, so that going in, like the initial character design is already done, right? He knows what they all look like. And then he invents new characters as they come along the way. But in general, it's all set for him.
How do you think directing has helped you or changed anything when it comes to comics? Do you think that's like just layout and format and different stuff like that has helped you?
Yeah, I think what's happened with directing is you start to think about what's the most important storytelling part, right? Because I think it gets easy sometimes to think this is cool or that's neat. Instead of like, does that moment tell the story? Am I emotionally tracking a certain character across a scene or an event or a page, right?
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Just reading the 8th, because I think a lot of comics can have such a good idea and just kind of go off track and not zone in on what needs to be told.
Right. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Kill Journal as well. Like Jason and I, what we never hardly talk about is like, oh, could his nose be bigger or his shoulders broader? Like detaily stuff like that. He's the artist, he can create. But what we really are talking about is like, does that frame tell the story? Is the look on that character's face tracking the emotional arc that's happening right now? And that, I think, is the most important part of it. I at least for me, I don't have interest in being the type of creator or an editor who is telling an artist, oh, he should be a little more like this, a little thinner, a little taller. Like that's not going to change anything for the audience, and they don't really care, really, because they don't know what's in that editor's head. They just know what the artist gives them. But what they're really tracking for an audience, right, as you've read so many books, is they're really tracking the emotional experience in the story. And so it's like, is that moment really doing it, right? Do we have this, because like, for example, with Sydney in those pages you read, she comes into this support group and she's worried, about, am I got myself in the wrong place, right? And then all of a sudden, all of a sudden they get attacked. And she's got to have this choice of, do I stay and fight or do I run, right? And so I think there's this feeling we need to track that emotional arc and get it to be convincing that she went from I'm scared to, oh no, I have to stay and fight. And then after the fight, does she choose to join the club, right? And that's really the most important thing to be tracking across your panels is that emotion happening, right? And then you're obviously tracking that same thing across all the characters, and then you frame them well in an interesting way so it looks cinematic. So that's I think that's what directing TV has hopefully helped brought to the table.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I really like how you tied all that together and how you've used all that. Lee, can you show some of those?
Yeah, I've got the trailer
photos. Oh, are they in the trailer? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the trailer queued up here. We can.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Start with the trailer because I was watching the trailer and I really like it. Here we go.
Is the audio?
You can't hear that?
No.
Mm-hmm.
When you do the share screen, sometimes if you're using StreamYard, lots of times there's a little box in the bottom left corner that says share audio.
Bottom left hand corner.
When you click share screen, and then it will.
Oh, I see now. I'm so sorry about that.
Nah, no big deal.
Thanks for teaching me something new there. All right.
My name is Sydney Valentine, and I'm a survivor. A revenant slaughtered everyone I love, including my daughter. They're evil spirits, back from the dead who wield machetes and tire irons, and a bullet to the head won't stop them. After one butchered his congregation, St. George claims God called him to hunt the revenants, and he's recruiting survivors to join him. Most won't make it out alive, but at least they're taking a stand. God has his book of life, and St. George has his kill journal.
The character designs are so cool.
Thank you. So in that case, I worked on that with another artist, Tonton Revolver, a French artist, super awesome dude. And now it's Jason Krager who is taking that over. And a lot of what Jason is doing is now he's got to invent a lot of these other sub characters and other things along the way. But you can see here, this is Dylan. This is one of our most terrifying revenants that they're dealing with here in this first volume of the Kill Journal. And I think that, he accurately built what might be considered a classic revenant, but gave it some new flair.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's a little bloody, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I wanted it to be two things, right? I wanted it to be a story that is actually truly a horror movie, but that it has a conscience, right? It's the splatter movie with a conscience, and so it's got heart in it, but it still also delivers on being a horror story.
Nice. So you got some of the perks that you got here. If you
Yeah.
I dropped a link in the comments. So everyone, if you press this link, you can see the same page that we're looking at, and you can back this project while you're there.
Yeah, so the first thing we've got the monthly digital issues. Just like we had done with the 8th, we're ahead on the book. And so we're going to drop it monthly as soon as the campaign ends. We'll be dropping it monthly. It'll be so that you can read right along. And then earlier next year, you'll get the leather-bound hardcover edition with you, or if you just want to be the digital guy. So these are the 4 covers. It's 88-page graphic novel. And then there's hopefully another 24 pages of story to unlock along the way. And so I wanted to make, once again, a cool experience, a collectible experience, right? So we did this faux leather-bound book, and it's kind of hard to tell the detail there, but it's based on the design of an old Catholic Bible. Because inside of the story, St. George, who runs this group, he keeps a record of all the revenants they encounter and the kills and the details. And he keeps them in this journal, which he calls the Kill Journal. But it's an old Catholic Bible that he's using. And so it's kind of a cool bit because this is an exact replica of it. So you're reading the book, and in the book you're reading, he's writing the book that you're reading.
So cool.
Oh, nice.
So there's Jason Krager's art and Steve Cannon's colors coming at you. And it will be, standard trade size, about a half-inch bigger on all sides than a standard trade, but it will be in the beautiful hardcover. And there's also hidden symbols inside of that inside of the leather-bound hardcover that you'll see play out in the story. So it's a fun thing to uncover yourself as you're reading.
Little Easter eggs everywhere.
Yeah. And then this is the badass t-shirt. This is our Dylan Revenant. And I wanted to make it haunting and horrifying so that it was fun to wear for Halloween or for any other time. And then I got the 8th here as an add-on for anybody who missed that campaign. You can pick it up here.
That's
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do this. I'm taking this option myself.
Excellent.
I read the first four issues of the 8th, and I really enjoyed it. So I'd definitely be keen to add this hardcover to my collection once it's completed.
Nice. Well, the good news is if you back the Killjoy on the 8th, the shipping is much cheaper because to add on something, it only increases your shipping just a few bucks because it's just a weight. It's not all the packaging and initial shipping. So it's just cheaper from a shipping standpoint.
This is crazy.
Yeah. So then this is the mask, right? This is that Dylan's mask.
Oh, wow.
And now you can wear it. And it's a full movie quality replica. It's made out of a resin, like a silicone resin. And it's got elastic straps and padding on the inside so you can wear it. And there's little air hole slits in the mouth that you can't quite see here because they're in the black. And, it scares away viruses and it keeps people 6 feet away from you. So there is no better time to be walking around in a mask. And it's a cool piece. And that if you back that tier, you get the mask, you get the leather bound, you get the digital issues. And then this one here, this is a cool week 1 print that for everybody who backed in week 1, which unfortunately we've passed through, you get this rad print by Preston Acevedo and Mike Spicer. And there
nice print.
It's a beautiful print, right? And the original of it is also up for sale if anybody wants the original that was done, hand drawn.
Nice.
And then these are our stretch goals, which are these 4 stories that we're wanting to unlock that give the origin or give the night that each one of our heroes was attacked, right? I didn't want to bog down the main storyline with an origin for every single one of our main characters. It's just like, I don't love origin stories a ton. Like I don't love to sit in them too long, but this is a chance to just get the event that changed each one of the survivors' lives. And so that way, and they're kind of like St. George's dossier files or his private record on the survivors. So we're hoping to unlock these along the way. And with your awesome support, folks, if you're out there listening, we can get there. And then these are brief bios on our principal characters. This is St. George, the half-mad preacher who's leading the group. Revenant butchered his congregation, took his son, and his wife has disappeared. And he feels divinely called to start this war with these revenants. But is it divine or is it just his own madness? Well, yet to be seen. And then this is Sydney, and you see her here in full battle mode, but she starts out, as you saw from the 6-page preview, that she starts out actually much more subdued and afraid. But this is her later in the tale when she's ready. Then this is Marty. Her dad was a chemist who lost his job and started building bombs in the basement for the mob, and she was his lab assistant. Then she got mad at him because he got a new girlfriend and she kind of lost all the attention. And she enacted this urban myth to try and get rid of the woman, but the Revenant got rid of her dad. And so she's living with that guilt and that struggle. And then this is Finch. He grew up on the Mexican border. His dad ran a dogfighting arena. One day a dog didn't show, and so he threw Finch in the ring. And so Finch,
oh my God,
then killed the pit bull as a kid, and then he started being trained and raised as one of the fighting dogs. And he is that. And so he has this sort of dog-like nature to him. And though he's like the scrawniest member of the club, he's by far the most dangerous. And in he worries that maybe he might come back as a revenant. And he has a revenant mask that he's stolen and he keeps buried in the backyard that he digs up from time to time.
That sounds like a fan favorite right there. That's an awesome character.
Yeah, I think so. I think he might be the fan favorite. I love him. And then this is Brecken. He's a swamp rat. He's a Creole swamp rat who has unfortunately illicit ties with a voodoo cult that's going to end up haunting him and the rest of the club. And then if you're overseas, I've got for shipping forwarders, different places that will ship it out in the UK and Australia and Canada, so that it's much cheaper than if I just was mailing it to you from the States.
Hey, it's my place.
Yes, yes.
I love seeing Australia-friendly shipping. It makes me happy.
Yeah. It takes the edge off of that initial price. And then here are the pages. Here are the pages. Or I should say a handful of the pages. And you can get a sense of how it all lays out.
It's really nice. Those character designs look beautiful. Holy moly, look at that.
Yeah, you guys need to go
He's
check
in
this
such
out.
shock
This is pretty
there.
brutal.
Right. Well, it's his son, right? And he's in so much shock. He's trying to put his head back together.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Lee, you probably haven't seen this yet, have you? Unless you scrolled down.
I had a bit of a scroll of it last night, but I must have not gotten this far down through this because I didn't see that head split there. That was that was crazy.
Yeah. So once again I wanted it to deliver on both fronts, as being both a horror story and a story with characters and heart. So that's how you get it.
Hearing you talk about it makes me so excited for us. Like, just picking up a book and reading it, and if it's a good story, is so great. But hearing the writer talk about how excited he is about it makes me so excited about it.
Same.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I am so jazzed. And it's something that is deep in me. And it's something that is always so exciting to see come to life. And so there's deep passion about it. And I think with the tale, you can see I tried to put a lot of these subtleties into it. So you can see this is Marty here on the left. You can see her with kind of her mohawk. You can see that she has a scar on the back of her spine there from a revenant attack. The characters, as the story goes, kind of I shouldn't say kind of, as the story goes, they get bruises and marks that live with them, right? They get continually worn down. The price, once again, of fighting something much tougher and stronger and more frightening than you are.
Do you have any future plans on any other books or ideas in your head that you think you might have?
Yeah, so I do. So I'm gonna try and show you this real quick. Let me see if I can bring this up. Yeah, so with the Kill Journal, this is just issue. This is volume 1, right? But the hope is that there will be more volumes of that, and then I have another story called Kids and Monsters. Let me try and get this. Hopefully you don't have it, of course. Internet problems. Pull this up. But it's another tale that it's not as graphic as the first two. It's a much tamer story in regards to that, but it's still got haunting elements, and it's about two kids who are trying to survive their parents' divorce, and as they're dealing with that problem, they start to realize these cracks in the world, and they get themselves pulled into this supernatural conflict, which is a reflection of the heartache and struggle of their parents' divorce that they're trying to cope with. Let me see here. If I can get, I'm going to try and share the screen really quickly, if you don't mind.
For
Let me see. Here we go. So you can see this guy here. If you can see that, these are our two kids, and these are their monsters that live in their backpacks. And when they get into scary and frightening places, they pull out their monsters to help them. So this is Kids and Monsters. So this is some of the first seeing this sneak preview. Maxie Dallow is going to be drawing it for me. And so if you saw that post I did today, that is his artwork. But so that's what's in the works. That's the Kill Journal. And I'm a lover of indie comics, and I'm grateful that you guys have found me and found the work. It's so cool. I think, on the course I've probably backed about 100 books, in my time. And so, which hurts your bank account, but lets you love, original creators. So
That's more than just an idea. You already have it going and everything.
Yes.
Awesome.
I try to realize it as much as possible before presenting it. So
nice.
So, and for you guys, this is you're now just moving. I know you've been doing all the comic reviews on Twitter, which I love, and now you're moving into videos. Yeah. Yeah.
Whack Lee here. He just started a few months ago, right? Maybe a little longer than that.
Yes, just back in July.
And then he messaged me about coming on with him, and then I started coming on live shows, just talking about comics that I've been reading and different stuff I collect. And then from there, we started making fun videos, and then we did our first creator interview last week, I think. And then you're our second one, and we have another one next week already set up.
That's awesome, guys. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
thank you for coming on. It's been
we're so happy that when Lee asked me if I knew anyone, you were the first one that came to mind.
That's awesome.
I was really hoping you'd come on, so I was super excited. And then you have this new book coming out too, so you got to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I know, it's great. It's a win-win-win for sure.
Yeah. Have you been reading anything lately that you've been liking, or?
Yeah, so there's three things that I've been loving. One is I've been reading Mountainhead. Have you been reading this on IDW? It's awesome. Mountainhead is super cool. I've been loving Mountainhead, so that's one. And then I've been reading, this classic, The Meta Barons by Drodowski, which is like the ultimate epic. Let me show you. It's the ultimate epic, textbook thick, 540 page ultimate, like classic, which I'm getting mostly done with. I've loved both of those. And then I read Bigfoot Bill by the guy from Earth who did Earthworm Jim, which was a really fun all ages book that I just found myself loving. His art is so cool, and the story is really interesting. So that's what I've been reading.
I'll have to look into those for sure. That the book you're holding right now looks really cool. Kind of looks like the guy from of course I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, it's rad art. It's all watercolor painted stuff. And what's funny is when you read it, you realize how much Avengers took right out of it. like those big Thanos' ships, or like those big whales that like move through space like that.
Yeah.
They're in here.
Oh,
Just,
wow.
yeah. You realize how much stuff this people sort of took out of his work. But anyways.
Nice. Do you have? I'm sorry to take it back all the way back to the beginning, but
No, go ahead.
do you have any more fun Sam Jackson stories?
I that was my most fun one. I mean, he's about as chill and as confident as you kind of think he is, and the man you meet on screen that's the man in real life. He's the real deal.
I love that he directly influenced you to pick up the comics, because with him doing, Nick Fury and
of course,
a couple other comic book roles, surely he's gotten other people into comic books from doing those roles, but like he more of a direct line for you,
right. This is like he got me into it because he was an actual fan, right? He's not a poser, right? He's the real thing, and that was years before Avengers. Maybe it's been like 14 or 15 years. Long before there was Avengers, and he was Nick Fury in any of that. And before he was even Nick Fury in the comic, how they kind of modeled Nick Fury in the Ultimates universe to look like him.
Yeah.
That is all before that. He was just the real thing.
That was so cool. The chances of that.
Do you have anything that you're directing coming up or like that? Or is it like a bit with COVID and stuff, it's a bit hard to find directing gigs?
That's the case. So right now I have two different series that are in development. One at Warner Brothers, one at Netflix. And so I'm in the writing game right now. And it's tricky, right? Because before COVID, everybody's like, hey, we got to get into production. And now it's like, let's we got some time. Let's think about these, let's think about these scripts one more time. And which is tough because your real paycheck comes when you get into production, but it's all part of the ride. You know what I mean? Where you're in that deal, you're meeting with your executives, you're developing it.
So no official start date for anything.
No, unfortunately, no official start date. Yeah, it is.
I hope that it gets around to you soon, because I could imagine that would be like another part that you'd be missing.
Oh yeah, big time. It's like there's no filming. It's just like. So many people I know have like moved out of the state, starting to change careers, because they just don't know how to make it work. And so it's really tricky at this time. And so many cable companies have gone out of business or consolidated. And so it's really tricky. So I'm and as a showrunner, you're always pitching studios, right? So you're taking meetings saying, hey, buy my show. I think it'd be great on your network, right? And you come to the meeting one week and then you come to the follow-up meeting. And all those guys, they got like, it's so-and-so's over here. It's like, it's crazy. So
I couldn't even imagine. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
So, do you have any plans for the 8th, making that into anything?
That would be amazing.
I was looking on somewhere online, and it said that it might be something like a show.
Yeah, well, so there's a couple of things going on. So, so I have it in the works as an animated series. So I brought on someone who works, has done a great deal of work in the animated world. Lots of big animated series to partner with on it, and because my world has been in live action, and his world is in animation. And so we've begun that process. As like with anything in this early stages of development at studios, they can fall apart really easy. But it is climbing. It is climbing, I would say. So it has a pathway, and it has key attachments and etc. And fortunately, because my work in the live action world, getting the meetings at HBO Max or Crunchyroll or etc. to getting the right animation meetings is easier to do. So that's so fingers crossed. It becomes
that would
something
be so cool.
yeah, right. Hopefully, it gets to become something more. So
that's such a good way to get people into comics too. Like, obviously, not everyone reads comics, but everyone watches TV. It seems like so. If that could become something, and then that's kind of how I got into comics, just watching different movies. I was like, man, I have to start reading some of this stuff because it's so good. And then you read the book and it's even better.
That's exactly right. That's what I've come to find as well. So it's right, because everyone watches TV. Certainly not everyone reads comics. I wish more people read them. They're so fun. But that's the tale. Well, guys, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'd love, obviously, happy to come back on any other time you want. And I'd love to talk movies and comics. And thanks for your support on the 8th. It's been so great, you guys, and I really appreciate the support here on the Kill Journal as well. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on. And I hope lots of people get to watch this and learn about your project and back it and everything else.
So
Yay.
Yeah, really appreciate you coming on. The link's in the chat, but it's also in the description to go and back the Kill Journal and get that ad on for the 8th, because the 8th is a good time. You got to want to do that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll wrap this up. Is there anything you want to plug? Last, where can people find you?
I know the way you can find me at Failed Superhero on Twitter, at Failed Superheroes Club on Instagram or Facebook. Find us there.
Cool. Awesome. And as always, follow Tyler, Shattered Glass Comic Reviews at Ready for Wednesdays on Twitter. He's got those reviews. He's also got reviews of the 8th on there if you want to check out more of that. But we'll wrap it up here. And see you later, everyone.